Hello everyone, Mice here. Welcome back to the Human Character Tutorial series. In the last part we modeled the hand for our body. Now we're going to be modeling the feet. Because this part is rarely seen in media, in the sense that hands are given more detail in a character, we're not going to be adding too much detail into the feet, though if you want, you'll be able to. Once again, if you don't have the hand or the body up until this point, don't worry. You can either watch the tutorial for those specific parts, or you can download the blend file that has the body, the hands already in the scene. I'll leave those two things in the description. Alright, let's get into it. Alright, just like we did with the hand, we're gonna start by adding a cylinder and making sure this has 12 vertices. Then we're gonna position it to where our reference is and scale it down. One important thing to do is to make sure we rotate this by 15 degrees on the Z-axis. And the reason that we're doing this is because we're gonna have 5 faces available here in the front. These 5 faces are gonna be the ones that we're gonna use to make the toes. Okay, now extrude this cylinder down and make sure it's touching the base. We're gonna focus on the toes first, so we're gonna select these 5 faces in the front and extrude them till we reach where the toes would be. Make sure to scale them down to the toe level and also make them straight using S plus the axis you wish to straighten, in this case the Y axis. This is a similar process that we had with the hands when first making the fingers. The next thing we're gonna do is position these vertices to where our toes would be, in this case the middle parts of each toe. This will make it so that when we extrude the toe, it will actually be facing to where the toes is. Okay, now we're ready to extrude the toes. So extrude the toes. I'm gonna be doing it individual for this case. And also make sure to scale them down on the X-axis if they are too wide. Unlike the hand, we're not gonna be using the bevel tool on these edges, since we're not aiming to have that amount of detail for our feet. But just know that the same process that we did for the hand can be applied for the feet as well, if you wish to have a more detailed feet. Next thing that we're gonna do is add some edge loops to the feet, in particular to these areas of the toes. These edges are gonna run around the whole feet. But remember, we want 12 vertices for our feet, so we'll deal with them a little bit later. I'm gonna have 2 edge loops around here. Now we're gonna select the front faces of the toes, right click, open loop tools and select circle. And there it is. They're a little bit more circular, which will come in handy when we smooth this. Another thing I'm gonna do with the toes is scale them down on the X-axis, so they are a little bit more smaller, but not too small on the Z-axis, so they don't lose their height. Now we're gonna be smoothing out the feet. Now I'm gonna add some edge loops here. Gonna go into scope mode and use the smooth tool from scope mode as well. And actually before I do that, I'm gonna use the smooth vertices option on the whole feet to make it more smooth. And then I'm gonna use the smooth tool from scope mode. Gotta make sure that this is a little bit more smooth before we do anything on the topology side. And I'm actually gonna delete this part because we're gonna grid fill it. But before we grid fill it, I'm gonna delete these edges. If you remember, these were the edges that we created when we inserted an edge loop on the toe. But since we don't want to have more than 12 vertices, I'm actually gonna delete that one. Now I'm gonna grid fill this part. I'm gonna select these edges, go to face, and then select grid fill. Now we have a better topology on this part of the feet. This next part is just smoothing out the feet, moving some parts around. The tools that I'm going to be using here are the smooth tool from scope mode and the proportional editing as well. If you don't know how to activate that one, just press O in your keyboard and there you have the proportional editing. You can add edge loops if you want to detail the feet a little bit more. This is just modifying the feet so it actually looks more like a feet. Like for example, it has this lobe that has the upper part of the feet. Just make sure that your feet looks quite good before starting to work on the toes itself. Alright, now we're gonna adjust the toes a bit. I'm gonna add some loops around the toes, just like the fingers. We're gonna need 2 loops for each toe. Here I noticed that an edge loop was added before adding the edge loops to this part, so I deleted it. And I'm actually gonna make this a circle again, just like that. Smooth vertices, and there it is. I'm gonna continue to add some edge loops there. I'm gonna delete those so they are centered. Okay, there it is. Then adjust the toes. I'm gonna move them up a bit since real life toes have this arc around this part. So here I'm gonna be modifying this part of the feet. I'm gonna be fixing the arc that the toes have. Also making sure that this part of the feet is actually touching the ground. So once again, we're gonna be actually modifying the feet a bit so that it's actually looking a little bit better. Since I noticed that the toes have this like weird shape, we want an arc shape, but not to this extreme. So make sure that the toes are actually touching the ground. Now that we have our feet looking quite smooth, the next thing that we have to do is remove these edges from our feet. They are directly making our feet have more vertices than we need. So we'll start by deleting these edges right here. Make sure they are the ones that run through the toe and not the ones that were in the cylinder to begin with. Alright, all those edges are gone. But we have the same problem that we had with the hand. We've created n-gons with the deletion of those edges. So now we're gonna have to fix this. First, I'm gonna bevel this whole edge so that I have something to work with here. I'm gonna move it here. Instead of redirecting the edges on the end of the feet, we're gonna do it right here in the beginning of the toe. So I'll start by using the knife tool. I'm gonna select this vertex right here and start cutting through this area of the feet until I arrive to the same part where I started out, but now in the lower feet. I'm gonna connect this vertex with this one and do the same for the lower part. There it is. Now we have redirected this edge loop and we have 4 vertices to worry about. So now this part is easy. We're gonna have to use the knife tool again and we're gonna join these 2 vertices together, like this. And done deal. We have redirected another edge loop. Now the process is the same for these other parts. Alright, we successfully resolved the n-gons that we had in our feet. We could leave it here if we wanted. It's just a matter of adjusting the feet to our liking. Now we're gonna focus on smoothing out the feet. I'm gonna be using proportional editing here to move some parts of the toe. Just make sure that it looks good, because then we're gonna be actually adding another edge loop, but in another way. I want to add some additional details in this part. I want to add an edge here, but I don't want to add more edges to the whole feet. So I'm going to redirect it. I'm going to subdivide these edges right here. There it is subdivided. And now we're going to subdivide these other edges right here. And now we're going to use the same technique that we use for the toes. We're going to use the knife tool. Take this route right here. And then connect these vertices with these ones. And there it is. We have an additional edge right here that we can use to better modify this part of the leg. And we didn't add a whole edge to the entirety of the foot. One last thing that I want to add is an edge loop running around the joint of the feet, which is this part. So I'm going to select these 4 faces and insert a loop with I. And there we go. I'm going to use smooth vertices here, scale a little bit, and just generally smooth it down a bit so it doesn't look too squarey. I'm also going to add an edge loop to this part of the feet to have some extra control. Alright, there's the feet. The next thing to do is to adjust the faces and make it look better. So enjoy the time lapse. we finally arrive at the end of the video. There's our feet, and it's looking quite good. And we have 12 vertices up here, so when we join it with the rest of the body, we'll have no issues. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to modify the existing feet to maybe add some changes of your own, you're free to do so. As always, I will leave 2 links in the description, one containing the folder where you can download the blend file for this scene, be it the initial one or the final one, and another folder where you can download the other blend files from past videos, in case you need them as a backup or don't have them. Don't forget that if you need help, you can always comment down below in this video or even join up my Discord. Whatever the choice may be, I'll be happy to help you with anything related to the tutorial or 3D in general. So that's about it. Take care and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.